In 19th century Paris, a green drink turned the world's greatest artists into madmen. Vincent van Gogh cut off his ear after drinking it. Paul Verlaine shot his lover and was imprisoned. Oscar Wilde wrote about the green fairy that danced on his table. Governments called it poison. They banned it. They blamed the herb that made it. That herb was wormwood. But the madness was not the plant's fault. It was the dose. And what happened to those artists is only the beginning of the story. For over 5,000 years, wormwood was one of the most valued plants on earth. The ancient Egyptians called it the star of the earth. They used it for fevers, parasites, and pain. They buried it with their dead. They considered it sacred. The Greeks believed it was a gift from the gods. The Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder wrote that wormwood was so valuable that they planted it along every road in the empire. It was a medicine, a protector, a cure for almost everything. And then, in the 19th century, everything changed. A green drink made from wormwood became the obsession of Paris. Artists and writers consumed it in staggering quantities. They called it the green fairy. They believed it unlocked their creativity. They believed it showed them things no one else could see. But the green fairy was not a friend. It was a warning. The drink was absinthe, and it nearly destroyed an entire generation of artists. But the plant itself was not the problem. The problem was what people did with it. They distilled it. They concentrated it. They consumed it in amounts no ancient culture ever would have considered. And then the plant was banned. But the story of wormwood does not end in a Parisian cafe. It ends in a laboratory in China. In 1971, a scientist discovered something in wormwood that would change the history of medicine forever. The same plant that was called a poison in the 19th century became one of the most important discoveries in modern science. It has saved millions of lives. Today, we are going to walk through the entire story. The ancient worship, the 19th century madness, the scientific rediscovery, and the truth about the most controversial herb in human history. Let us start at the beginning. Wormwood is called Artemisia absinthium in Latin. It is a flowering plant that grows throughout Europe, Asia, and North Africa. It produces clusters of small yellow flowers and a bitter, aromatic herb that has been used for medicine for thousands of years. The earliest recorded use of wormwood comes from ancient Egypt. The Ebers Papyrus, written around 1550 BC, contains multiple references to wormwood. It was used for fevers, parasites, and digestive complaints. It was also used in religious ceremonies. The Egyptians called it the star of the earth. They believed it had protective powers. They placed it in tombs. They buried it with their dead. They considered it a gift from the gods. But it was the Greeks who truly elevated wormwood to legendary status. The Greek physician Dioscorides wrote extensively about wormwood in his Herbal encyclopedia. He prescribed it for intestinal worms, fevers, and liver complaints. He noted that it was one of the most effective remedies for parasites. He also noted that it was bitter, very bitter. The Greek philosopher Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, recommended wormwood for digestive disorders and nervous conditions. He believed it could restore balance to the body. But it was the Romans who truly valued wormwood. The Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder wrote about wormwood in his Natural History. He described it as a remedy for fevers, stomach ailments, and poisoning. He noted that it was so valuable that the Romans planted it along every road in the empire. This was not just for convenience. It was a statement. Wormwood was essential. Think about what that means. The Romans, who conquered the known world, planted a herb along every road they built. They did not do this for gold. They did not do this for silver. They did it for wormwood. But the Romans were not the only ones who valued wormwood. In medieval Europe, wormwood was a staple of monastic medicine. Monks used it for fevers, parasites, and digestive disorders. They also used it to make a bitter tonic that was believed to strengthen the stomach. In traditional Chinese medicine, wormwood was used for similar purposes. It was used for fevers, parasites, and menstrual disorders. It was also used in moxibustion, a therapy that involves burning herbs on acupuncture points. Across cultures and centuries, wormwood was one of the most trusted remedies in human history. It was more trusted than almost anything else. It was more accessible than almost anything else. And it worked better than almost anything else. But then, something happened that changed everything. To understand why wormwood is so controversial, you need to understand what it actually does. Wormwood contains a class of compounds called sesquiterpene lactones. The most important of these is called absinthin. Absinthin is the compound that gives wormwood its extreme bitterness. It is one of the most bitter substances known to science. But absinthin is not the only compound in wormwood. Wormwood also contains a compound called Thujone. Thujone is a monoterpene that affects the central nervous system. It acts on GABA receptors, similar to how valerian works. But Thujone is different. It does not calm the nervous system. It stimulates it. In small amounts, Thujone can have beneficial effects. It can stimulate digestion. It can increase appetite. It can improve mood. In large amounts, Thujone can be dangerous. It can cause seizures. It can cause hallucinations. It can cause madness. But here is what most people never realize. Thujone is not the only compound in wormwood. It is one of many. And the way these compounds interact is what makes wormwood so unique. Wormwood also contains compounds that are effective against parasites. The most important of these is artemisinin. Artemisinin is a compound that was first isolated from wormwood in the 1970s. It is one of the most effective treatments for malaria in the world. And this is where the story gets fascinating. The same plant that was called a poison in the 19th century became one of the most important discoveries in modern medicine. Artemisinin has saved millions of lives. It has been used to treat malaria in Africa, Asia, and South America. It has been called the most important discovery in tropical medicine in the 20th century. But the science does not stop there. Wormwood has also been studied for its effects on cancer. Some studies suggest that artemisinin and other compounds in wormwood can inhibit the growth of cancer cells. The research is preliminary, but it is promising. Wormwood has also been studied for its effects on inflammation. It has been shown to reduce inflammatory markers in the body. It has also been shown to have antimicrobial properties. So here is the paradox. Wormwood is both a poison and a medicine. It depends entirely on the dose. In small amounts, it is one of the most effective remedies in human history. In large amounts, it is a poison that can cause madness and death. And that is exactly what happened in 19th century Paris. In the 19th century, a green drink made from wormwood became the obsession of Paris. It was called absinthe, and it was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Absinthe was made by distilling wormwood with other herbs. The process concentrated the compounds in wormwood, including Thujone. The resulting liquid was a bright, shimmering green. It was beautiful. It was intoxicating. And it was dangerous. Artists and writers flocked to absinthe. They called it the green fairy. They believed it unlocked their creativity. They believed it showed them things no one else could see. Vincent van Gogh was a famous absinthe drinker. He consumed it in large quantities. He painted some of his most famous works while under its influence. He also cut off his ear. Some historians believe absinthe played a role in his madness. Paul Verlaine was another famous absinthe drinker. He was one of the most important poets of the 19th century. He also shot his lover and was imprisoned. His relationship with absinthe was well documented. He called it his only friend. Oscar Wilde wrote about absinthe in his works. He described the green fairy as a seductive, dangerous presence. He wrote that absinthe could show you everything and nothing. But absinthe was not just for artists. It was for everyone. Soldiers drank it before battle. Workers drank it after a long day. It was cheap. It was available. It was everywhere. And then, something started to happen. People started going mad. They saw things that were not there. They heard voices. They experienced seizures. They became violent. They became paranoid. They became unrecognizable. Governments called it absinthe madness. They blamed the herb that made it. They banned absinthe. They banned wormwood. But here is what most people never realize. The madness was not the plant's fault. It was the dose. Absinthe was not the only drink in Paris. There was also wine. There was also beer. There was also gin. But absinthe was different. It was stronger. It was more concentrated. And it was consumed in staggering quantities. The average absinthe drinker in 19th century Paris consumed the equivalent of 30 to 40 shots of alcohol per day. That is not an exaggeration. The consumption of absinthe was measured in liters, not milliliters. The compound Thujone was not the cause of the madness. The cause was alcohol poisoning, pure and simple. The people who went mad from absinthe were not mad from Thujone. They were mad from alcohol. They were drinking themselves into insanity. And the plant was blamed. But the story of Wormwood does not end there. It took a surprising turn in the 20th century, and that turn saved millions of lives. In the 1970s, a Chinese scientist named Thujone was assigned a difficult task. She was tasked with finding a cure for malaria. Malaria was one of the deadliest diseases in human history. It killed millions of people every year. There were treatments, but they were losing effectiveness. The disease was developing resistance to the drugs that were available. Thujone turned to ancient Chinese texts. She studied traditional Chinese medicine. She searched for references to fevers and fever remedies, and she found something promising. In a text called the Handbook of Prescriptions for Emergency Treatments, written in 340 AD, she found a reference to a plant that was used for fevers. The plant was Artemisia annua, a relative of wormwood. It was called qinghao in Chinese. Thujone extracted the active compound from qinghao. She tested it. It was effective against malaria. She had discovered artemisinin. Artemisinin is now one of the most important drugs in the world. It has saved millions of lives. It has been used to treat malaria in Africa, Asia, and South America. It has been called the most important discovery in tropical medicine in the 20th century. In 2015, Thujone was awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine for her discovery. But here is what most people never realize. The plant that she used, Artemisia annua, is a close relative of wormwood. They are both members of the Artemisia genus. They both contain artemisinin. The same plant that was called a poison in the 19th century became one of the most important discoveries in modern medicine. And that is the real story of wormwood. The plant is not a poison, it is a medicine. It was used for thousands of years by ancient cultures. It was used for fevers, parasites, and pain. It was one of the most trusted remedies in human history. And then, in the 19th century, it was misused. It was distilled. It was concentrated. It was consumed in staggering quantities. And the plant was blamed for the consequences. But the plant was never the problem. The problem was the dose. Now, let us talk about how to use wormwood safely. If you want to use wormwood, here is what you need to know. First, choose the right form. Wormwood is available as tea, tincture, capsules, and dried herb. Each form has its advantages and disadvantages. Tea is the most traditional form. It is simple, accessible, and safe. But it is also the least concentrated. You need to drink a lot of it to get the full effect. Tincture is a liquid extract. It is more concentrated than tea. It is absorbed quickly into your system. It works faster. But it has a strong, bitter taste that some people find unpleasant. Capsules are the most convenient form. They are portable, easy to take, and have a standardized dosage. They are ideal for people who travel or who do not like the taste of tea or tincture. Dried herb can be used to make tea or tincture. It is the most economical option, but it requires more preparation. Second, find the right dosage. For tea, steep 1 to 2 teaspoons of dried wormwood in hot water for 5 to 10 minutes. Drink it 15 to 30 minutes before meals. For tincture, follow the dosage instructions on the product label. Most tinctures recommend 1 to 2 milliliters. For capsules, the recommended dosage is usually 200 to 500 milligrams. Start with the lower dose and increase gradually if needed. Third, be careful. Wormwood is safe in small amounts. It is dangerous in large amounts. Do not exceed the recommended dosage. Do not take it for more than a few weeks at a time. Thujone is the compound that makes wormwood dangerous. It accumulates in the body. It can cause seizures and hallucinations. Do not take wormwood every day for long periods. Fourth, time it correctly. Take wormwood before meals. It stimulates digestion and can increase appetite. It is not a sleep aid. It is a digestive aid. Fifth, know when to stop. If you experience any unusual symptoms, stop taking wormwood. If you feel nauseous, dizzy, or confused, stop taking wormwood. If you have a seizure, stop taking wormwood. If you have a history of seizures, do not take wormwood at all. Now, here is something else that matters for certain people. There are a few things most people get wrong about wormwood. First, they think wormwood and absinthe are the same thing. They are not. Wormwood is the plant. Absinthe is the drink. The drink is made from wormwood, but it is not the plant itself. It is a concentrated extract, and it is consumed in much larger quantities than the plant ever was. Second, they think Thujone is a hallucinogen. It is not. Thujone is not a hallucinogen. It is a stimulant. In large amounts, it can cause seizures and hallucinations. But it does not cause hallucinations on its own. The hallucinations in 19th century Paris were caused by alcohol poisoning, not Thujone. Third, they think wormwood is illegal. It is not. Wormwood is legal in most countries. The plant is not illegal. The drink absinthe is legal in many countries. The bans on absinthe have been lifted in most places. The plant itself has never been illegal. Fourth, they think wormwood is dangerous. It is not. Wormwood is safe in small amounts. It is dangerous in large amounts. But that is true of many things. The key is the dose. Fifth, they think wormwood is only used for absinthe. It is not. Wormwood is used for medicine. It is used for digestion. It is used for parasites. It is used for malaria. It is one of the most important medicinal plants in human history. Now, there is one more thing to consider. Wormwood is not for everyone. If you are pregnant or breastfeeding, do not take wormwood. It is not safe during pregnancy. It can cause uterine contractions. If you have a history of seizures, do not take wormwood. It can trigger seizures in sensitive individuals. If you have liver disease, talk to your doctor before using wormwood. The compounds in wormwood are metabolized in the liver. If you are taking any medications, talk to your doctor before using wormwood. Wormwood can interact with other medications. For everyone else, wormwood is one of the most fascinating and effective herbs in the world. But it must be used with respect. So what do you do with all of this? Here are 3 things to remember about wormwood. First, wormwood is a medicine, not a poison. It has been used for thousands of years. It was valued by Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. It was used for fevers, parasites, and pain. It is one of the most important medicinal plants in human history. Second, the dose is everything. The same plant that was called a poison in the 19th century is now a life-saving drug. The difference is the dose. In small amounts, wormwood is safe. In large amounts, it is dangerous. Respect the plant. Respect the dose. Third, the story of wormwood is the story of human ignorance. We blame the plant for what people do with it. We call it poison when we misuse it. We ban it when we abuse it. But the plant is not the problem. The problem is us. Remember what the ancient Egyptians called it. The star of the earth. They knew what it was. They used it with respect. They used it with wisdom. They understood what it could do. That understanding has not changed. Wormwood is still the star of the earth. It still has the power to heal. It still has the power to save lives. It can help you, but only if you use it correctly. If this opens something up for you, share it with someone who needs it. Someone who has heard the myth. Someone who needs to know the truth about one of the most controversial herbs in history. Thank you again for your time. God bless you. And we will see you in the next one.